In 2017, my mom and I went on a trip through the Middle East. This is some of the pictures that we took and videos we took along the way. We traveled with a company called Overseas Adventure Travel, a company that we've used in the past several times. And we started off in the Palestinian territories, and we went through Israel, down the Suez Canal, over to Egypt, then over to Jordan, and back up, ending in Israel, ending in Jerusalem. In the Palestinian territories, we started off in a town called Nablus, where the Good Samaritans are from, the Samaritan Museum here. And we had a nice visit with the museum. And then they showed us the sacrifice pit where they still do sacrifices, animal sacrifices, not human. And then we went to basically a walking tour through town into the market. It was just amazing market that day. All different spices, different types of food, lots and lots of olives. Olives are a huge thing pretty much throughout the Middle East. They buy and sell olive oil by the barrel. We had a really yum dessert. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was basically like a semolina flour with cheese in the middle and sugar on top. It was really, really good. And that's my mom. Hi, Mom. We got a lot of stares walking through Nablus. Most of the women are covered and we weren't. And not rude stares, just curious for the most part. Then we went up to an old Roman theater on a mountain, had lunch, and this is the theater here. As you can see, driving through in the Palestinian territories, it was really, really dry. It was one of my favorite parts of the whole trip there because the landscape was just so stark. You could go for miles and miles and there was no water, there were no trees, it was all rocks. Just amazingly beautiful, but stark. This is the Museum of Yasser Arafat, and a mural on the wall in the museum. And they had guards there, in the more symbolic guards. And this is Ramallah. This is the sunset on Ramallah, and KFC, because, what town in Palestinian territories doesn't have a KFC? The settlement's up on the far end. More of the scenery. We headed toward the Al-Ibrahimi Mosque, which is where Abraham and Sarah's remains are believed to be. And that's me and Mom in our beautiful robes in the mosque. This is a synagogue on the other side of the mosque. It's pretty much in the same building, but this is the walkway over to the synagogue and the mosque. And this is a camel. There was a butcher that had a camel butchered, and he kept walking up to the window and rubbing his stomach and trying to tell us to come in and have some, but we didn't. More of the Jewish settlements there in the distance. We had lunch overlooking El Batir. This is a rice dish that it's rice and chicken, and they turn it upside down onto the table for you to eat it. Very traditional. We had it several times when we were in the Palestinian territories. And this is in the town of El Batir. That's Mahdi, that's our tour guide. He was my favorite of our guides. And we went over El Batir. They had terraces that were thousands of years old. These terraces have been farmed for many, many, many years. Those are cabbages, absolutely humongous. And you can see the aqueduct for the water. So this is one of the terraces outside of Bethel, right at the call to prayer. You can see in each one of the terraces they're growing something different.
Okay, my friends, I'm close to this.
There's signs like this all over the Palestinian territories for U.S. aid because the U.S. government and other companies give a lot of money to support Palestine. There is no organized government in the country. It's not even really a country. This is our hotel in Jericho, a bit of a contrast to the area around it. It's really, really nice, but you felt like you weren't really in Jericho. And these are date palms on the road outside of Jericho. Street signs heading towards Ramallah and Bethel. This is my favorite picture of all the ones that I took. That's a Bedouin village in the foreground. And another Bedouin village. They're much more modern today in that they're a lot more stationary than they used to be. Some of them even have satellite TVs, but it's still very rustic. And this is a Jewish settlement. Big contrast to the area around it. We visited a Jewish settlement in the Palestinian territories and went to the synagogue and were able to speak with one of the people that lives there. It's fascinating, very controversial. It was a big hubbub within our group. And it's the building with a picture of Yasser Arafat. And then more of the roadways outside of Bethlehem. And this is coming into Bethlehem to the Church of the Nativity, where Jesus Christ was born. And this is inside the Church of the Nativity as you head in. And you have to go down into a little cave, and this is the waiting line to get in. And then once you're down, this is basically where Jesus was thought to be born. And then this is still where he was thought to be born. And then this is where the manger, they believe his manger was. Very different from the pictures you see in the U.S. There's no wood anywhere in the actual manger. It was all rock. It's very hard to find actual wood in the Middle East. Not quite what I expected it to look like. Just a rock cave. This is the door going in and out. That's Mom going through the door. And then this is the area outside the entryway into the Church of the Nativity. We had lunch. We had falafel in this little falafel stand. That's me being really silly with the menu. Our first menu where we had to order ourselves. This is Gene. He was one of the guys on our tour playing flute. Yeah. Starbucks, Palestinian Starbucks. Me with a Starbucks mug from my cousin. It wasn't a real Starbucks. It was all fake. This is a monastery right outside of Bethlehem that we visited. The ancient caves and houses built into the side of the rock. Really pretty. And me outside of the monastery. There's a walkway. You can go way far down through past the river next to the monastery. And the blue door. Everybody had to go to the bathroom. That's the bathroom. There was a long line. This is Mom at the picture of sea level going through the Palestinian territories. So this guy gives camel rides on his camel, and he was walking back, we thought, to his tent, but no, he was taking off a tarp on top of his truck. And he hitched the camel to the truck.
Wait,
oh my goodness! Wow. Modern Bedouin. This is in Hisham's palace outside of Jericho. That was Maddie. This is Dennis. He's one of the guys that was on our tour with us. And this is inside of a synagogue outside of Jericho. That's Gene playing his flute again. And the mosaic floor inside the synagogue. From there, we headed back into Jericho to the cable car up to the Mount of Temptation. This is where Jesus was supposed to be tempted by the devil. You can take the cable car up, way, way, way up, and then walk over to the monastery. What's a monastery? At the Mount of Temptation. It's an old olive press inside the monastery. These guys wanted us to take their picture. All the kids were really, really super friendly and just wanted us to take pictures of them. This is down from at the archaeological park where Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho, except according to them, there's no proof in Jericho that there was ever a battle fought and that walls ever came tumbling down. So this is the drive over to the Jordan River. So there are mines underneath there. You have to be very careful and stay on the road. They just opened this road a few years ago. This is the baptismal site at the Jordan River. People being baptized. It was very, very crowded. A lot of people come here to be baptized. These people were actually from Texas, coming from far, far away. We just put our feet in. We didn't dunk. I love that picture. That's awesome. And this is Mom and Izzy, one of the women that was on our tour. And the next picture is actually, we think it's a beaver. It's we saw it in the river when we were watching the people be baptized. So this is our last stop before we left the Palestinian territories. This is a mosque. That's the shrine room. The shrine room. It was a really, really, really cool mosque. And a cemetery outside of the mosque. It used to be an inn where travelers could stay, and there's lots and lots of little rooms with windows. Now it's just a tourist site. That's Gene, one of the guys on the tour, the guy that plays the flute. And that is Dave. He's a magician. He was on our tour. Cemetery again, me in the mosque. Mom in the mosque. Okay, I might have gotten a lot of pictures in the mosque, sorry. This is Maddie. This was us saying goodbye. It was our last visit with Maddie. And then coming up soon is a video of Maddie as we came right into Jerusalem.
There's 1 million people living inside the old city. And it is two sides. This is the east side is the Palestinian side, and the west side is the Israeli Jewish side, basically. I live north of Jerusalem. The north is, I'm living that one. Most of the north should have been the expansion of the East Jerusalem.
Look at all the buses down there.
Yes. Yeah, what are all the buses here for?
Down by the rock.
We didn't stay in Jerusalem. We went to Tel Aviv and checked into our hotel. This is our hotel, where there was a sign on the TV welcoming us, and Mom thought that it felt like we were being spied on. But it was an amazing hotel room. This is our view from the hotel room. We went to lunch that day when we first came into a falafel shop on our own, which was fun, trying to talk to the guy who didn't speak any English at all. Then the next day we went on a tour through Jaffa, which is a walking tour nearby the Wishing Bridge, which is really cool. Jaffa's like the old area. It's not actually an older part of Tel Aviv. It's a separate city, but it was one of the original ports in Israel. Really old-timey, lots of antique shops and a market area. Really nice walking through it. And then we walked back through to Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv is a huge surfers beach. I didn't realize that, but there were a lot of surfers out. Really pretty, really nice beach. The next day we went to the market, and actually that same day I think we went to the market. Again, olives, lots of spices. Lots of baklava. Yum. So colorful. The spices are just everywhere, and they're so cheap. There were lots of stands for halva, all different flavors, all different varieties. I don't know actually what it's made out of, but it's a bit dry for me. Then we headed over to Caesarea, which is an old Roman city on the sea, heading up toward Haifa. Haifa is north of Tel Aviv, a few hours north of Tel Aviv, and that's where our boat was, where we were leaving for the Suez Canal. Caesarea was really cool. There were chariot races here back in the day. This is the town of Haifa. I absolutely loved Haifa, and this is the Baha'i Gardens overlooking Haifa. I thought I could live here one day if I was going to live in Israel. This is where I would be. So this is Haifa, Baha'i Gardens in Haifa. Golden Dune. And that right there is our boat that we're going to get on in a few hours. I think this is the port coming into Haifa where our boat was. And this is the boat itself. This is the Clio, which we embarked on that night. We just stayed in port that night. We didn't actually go anywhere. We had welcome champagne and chocolates in our room, and we had a lovely balcony in the boat. And that's Mom settling in. And then the next day we got up and drove over to the Sea of Galilee. So this is taken on the Mount of Beatitudes, where the Sermon on the Mount was done. And that's Mom. It was absolutely beautiful. And some of the pieces from the Sermon on the Mount. And there's a church at the top for the Sermon on the Mount where you can go into. We had a beautiful weather too. It was really nice. The whole time we were there, it never rained. We got really, really lucky. So after that, we went here, which is the city where Peter is said to have lived, near the Sea of Galilee. Jesus is thought to have lived with Peter for a while. And that building is on top of literally Peter's house. So that's the Sea of Galilee there in the background. And then this is where Peter's house was said to be. They think that Jesus lived with him for about 3 years and would have been proselytizing there. This is a kibbutz. We actually had lunch in a kibbutz in one of the Jewish settlements outside of Golem, heading over to Golem Heights. And this is a kindergarten in the Golem Heights. They really believe in letting the children explore and play with things that looked very unsanitary to some of us, but it's looked like fun. This is the children's house in the Jewish settlement, and this is underneath the children's house. They have a tunnel that basically takes you down to a bomb shelter. These are paintings on the side of the bomb shelter walkway going down into the bottom of the bomb shelter, where they have cribs hooked to the side of the wall, because in the past they've had to go down there pretty regularly. And there's bathrooms there on the side of the bomb shelter. They said even just 30 days before we were there, they had a stray bomb coming in from Syria that landed there. Kind of sobering. This is in the Golem Heights. This is a UN vehicle. Some of the sculptures heading over to the Golem Heights, to one of the overlooks at Mount Bentel. And warnings that you're at your own risk, because this is literally right on the Syrian border. And of course there's a gift shop there, miles and miles from nowhere. And this is a bunker. They have tunnels there and bunker. And this is overlooking, so we're standing in the Palestinian territories, but overlooking parts of Syria here, and the UN no-go zone between us and Syria. You could actually hear the bombs going off in Syria. It was really kind of sad. Really close by and going off really regularly. And this is this is the Syrian border between Israel and Syria. You can actually hear bombs in the distance. This is the UN up on the hill. Oh wow, you can really hear the bombing. This is Dave. Dave was a magician on our trip, did lots and lots of magic tricks for the kids. So this is back on the boat. This is our pilot boat, or the boat delivering our pilot to us. So the next morning at 3:30 in the morning, we all got up to actually watch us enter the Suez Canal, which was really exciting, except that it was dark and you couldn't really see anything. But it was cool. We got up, had hot chocolate, watched us go into the Suez Canal, and then went back to bed. And this is inside the Suez Canal itself. That's a fishing boat there. And we were inside the Suez Canal for about a day and a half. It's a long, long canal. This is one of the guard posts in the canal. They said 120,000 people died in the building of the Suez Canal. It's huge, and 25% of the Egyptian population was working on it. Oh, the fishermen. Very smooth. Sorry, I know that last video was long, but it's kind of cool. So going through the Suez Canal, here's more pictures. It cost our boat something like $50,000 to go through the Suez Canal. It was not at all cheap. The only boats that really go through there are cargo ships and boats that can afford the steep costs, because it's thousands of dollars. This picture might not be quite in the right place, but it's satellite view of where we were coming through the Suez Canal. We had 2 days on the boat going through the canal and then down through the sea. We had lots of time to take selfies and pictures on the back of the boat. Lots of military. The military really patrols the Suez Canal because it's such an important money earner for Egypt. It's huge. I can't remember what they said as far as the numbers, but it's a big piece of the income for Egypt. And this is for you, Sean Plaster. You got me stuck on these things. We were just leaving the Suez Canal. And then this is the port at Sokina, coming into, getting ready to head over to Cairo. So this is the drive over to Cairo. That's going to be the new capital of Egypt. They're building a whole new city outside of Cairo. Cairo has 25 million people. It's so populated that it's just amazing. I had never seen anything like it. Miles and miles and miles of just apartment buildings that look the same and surrounded by desert. 25 million people. Just apartment after apartment after apartment. And then we got to the Great Pyramid. So this is my ticket to the Great Pyramid. In Giza, that's me and Dennis getting ready to go inside. And there we go. One of the only remaining of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. pretty impressive. You can go inside the Great Pyramid, you can walk through. You have to walk, it's pretty hunched over, but you can walk all the way through and go up into the inside where the tomb was. And that building houses a boat, one of the boats that they found there on the site. You have to put on special shoes to protect the floor and make sure that there's no dust in the building. And then that's the boat that they unearthed. 5,000 years old. Camel rides if you want them, of course, outside the pyramids of Giza. Another picture of the pyramid. It was huge. There were vendors everywhere, though. They were really, really aggressive vendors. The most aggressive we saw on the whole trip. Everybody wanted to sell us something. And then, of course, you have to do the obligatory camel ride. That's me on the camel in my I Heart Data shirt with Mom. And Mom on her camel. You can go up around. You have to take the bus up, but you can go up nearby and have a nice view looking down over the pyramids. And then we headed over to the Sphinx. Though you have to, again, drive. You could walk, but it's a little bit of a walk from the pyramids to the Sphinx. And I can walk around there and see the Sphinx, which is really, really neat. And I'm kind of embarrassed about that picture, but it's a touristy thing to do, so I had to do it. Camels. And that's me and Mom looking a little windblown. Another picture of the Sphinx. And then after that, we went and ate lunch at I think it was a palace nearby to the pyramids. And then this is going back to we had to drive back to the boat. It's a bit of a drive going back through, but the traffic it's nothing compared to India where I've seen now, but this is an armchair in the back of the pickup truck driving down the road, so there you go. And then this is a mosque just where our boat was docked. And we had guards. You can't go in traveling in Egypt without armed guards, so we had armed guards before the bus with us every day. When we got to Luxor, we actually had to fly. It's about a 4-hour drive, so they decided to fly us the 2 hours over to Luxor. And so we flew in the morning and then stopped in Karnak. This is the Karnak temple in Luxor, and we spent our first part of the day there. I didn't really know much about Karnak, but it's such an intact temple. The colors are just crazy. And it goes on forever and ever and ever. So well endowed. And there's sections. That is pretty cool. It's 3,000, 4,000 years old. And the colors basically. Read obelisk inside Karnak. Sorry, I really liked Karnak. It's really statues. And we got a little bit of colors. That's Carol and Paula on our trip, and then we had some kids. Just too cute not to get the picture. And these are, I think it was an ox they're supposed to be. Oh, I can't remember. Not an ox, can't be an ox. Anyway, something. Really nice sunset picture. And then we headed back to our hotel. We were staying at a really, really nice hotel in Luxor and had tea provided for us there. This is supposed to be where Agatha Christie wrote the Death on the Nile. It was dark by the time tea was over, but we walked down. This is a temple in Luxor. It's walking distance to our hotel, and we spent the evening there. Luxor, from the temple in Luxor out to Karnak. And now we are in the Valley of the Kings, where the tombs were. This is inside some of the tombs. Colors, again, thousands of years old, and those colors are just amazingly intact. Okay, I think I got one of the pictures out of order. Sorry, that was from Luxor in the middle, but this is where the tombs are. We went into several of the Ramses tombs. We went into King Tut's tomb, but you can't take pictures inside of King Tut's tomb. So, but this is, as you can see, so that's Mom and Dennis. Dennis and his wife were two of the people on the tour with us. But the pictures, the colors, and the detail in the hieroglyphics were just so clear. That's the entrance into one of the tombs. You can see that looks like a sphinx on the side. Sorry, lots of tomb pictures, but they really were neat, and some pictures like I hadn't seen before. There's Mom inside. I think this is one of the Ramses tombs. And pictures of the boats. More tombs. And one of the sarcophagi. And again, inside the tombs, you can see how huge they are. Crazy, that's inside the rock. And there's the tomb of King Tut, but again, you can't go inside. I mean, you can go inside, but you can't take pictures. That's the only one you can't take pictures. All the other ones, you have to pay money to get some kind of photography pass. But as long as you do, then you can take pictures. And more. Okay, I think this is the last one. Nope, this is the train coming in and out. There's like a little trolley that takes you in and out of the Valley of the Kings. And so this is nearby to the Valley of the Kings, a couple of statues that we stopped at. And we had a home-hosted lunch with this family that lives in a little town near Luxor. And the man's wife made us lunch, and he and his kids served. That's the town mayor. He came to visit us. I guess we were really important. And then inside the family's house, where they kept their chickens, this was their kitchen, where they made us lunch. And then two of their kids, they had 4 kids, 2 girls and 2 boys. And there's the kids. And then that's our hotel that we were staying in across the Nile from where the home-hosted lunch was. We had to take a little boat. I can't remember what it's called, but basically took a boat across the Nile. It wasn't a very long boat ride. We just literally went right across the Nile, but it was fun. And that's some of the folks on the tour. And the boat captain. And me and the boat captain. So that's George there in the front of that picture. And George was a Holocaust survivor. It's really interesting having him on the trip. He was in his 90s. He was 92, we figured. And he's actually written a book about his Holocaust experience. His family was killed in the concentration camps, his mom and his sister, but he survived, and so did his dad. So this was us saying goodbye to our boat after the end of our boat ride, and we went straight to Wadi Rum from there. So that's our deluxe ride through Wadi Rum in the back of a pickup truck. And that's Wadi Rum itself, which is everything that people tell you it's going to be. Just miles and miles and miles of rock and sand. Just desolate. That's the pickup trucks. You can see how small they are in the background. And there's our pickup trucks. Everybody rode in the back, and they had little chairs in the back. We basically rode the pickup trucks through to catch our camel ride. So they had camels waiting for us. If you wanted to, you could ride on the camel. And some of the guys bringing the camels out to meet us. And that's me on the back of the camel, and that's our guide. And that's us. More of us on the camel. That's me in the front, and that's Mom there behind. And we dismounted. They had a little tent with tea and snacks for us. This is the tea made over the fire. And then more got back on in our pickup truck and rode out to a little restaurant area they had set up for us, an eating area where they had cooked lunch inside of this pit, basically. Chicken and potatoes and vegetables that were cooked in the ground in tinfoil. Similar in a lot of ways to some of the other areas where, like in New Zealand, where they cook the hongi. And then heading over to Petra. So we stopped outside of Petra near our hotel. They had a basically the Bedouins did a dance for us, and we had a buffet dinner. And that's Mom doing the dance. It was fun. And the next morning we started off at Petra bright and early. We got there when the gates opened, literally at 7:30 in the morning, as soon as we possibly could. You could take a carriage ride if you wanted to. That's George and Rita taking a carriage in. We, of course, walked. You walk for quite a ways in Petra before you get to the Sick, which is the really narrow walkway inside. So this is the Sick that's carved out through the river from years and years and years. That's me walking through. We took a break on the way in to listen to the guide telling us a bit. That's an aqueduct that they're sitting on, ancient aqueduct. And the carriages could take you through here if you didn't want to walk, so you could take a carriage to the main entrance. Those are security guards, the two guys in front, and then the guys behind were people that worked there. We got there so early in the day that the guys that worked there were still going in and getting ready. And there's the security guards. That's the aqueduct. It, of course, isn't much use anymore, but back in the day it brought water all the way into the city. And this is the entrance coming in, and then there's the treasury. You basically come down that narrow path in the Sick and turn a corner, and there you are, literally carved into the rock. It's just amazing. It's Petra is considered one of the 7 modern wonders of the world, and it really deserves it. It was my favorite place. I could have stayed there for an entire week. You could go, you can see every little nook and cranny. They put the Bedouins lived here for thousands of years. And some of the designs have worn away over time, but people were living here even just 50 years ago, less than 50 years ago, and then they made them move so that, because they were afraid that the site wouldn't be protected. So they built a village nearby to Petra, and that's where all the people, the Bedouins that lived here, moved. But Petra goes on. The thing that surprised me about it is it goes on and on and on. It just goes for miles, with the houses and the caves built into the rock. I didn't take this picture, but it's amazing. One of the women on our tour did. And then that's Mom. After lunch, she and oh goodness, I can't remember.
So this
Joanne,
is inside Petra.
Grabbed a carriage ride and headed back to the hotel. Mom's hip was bothering her a little bit.
And we hiked up to the monastery and inside.
So I ditched her,
I
and
have
me and
Petra all
Paula,
myself
that's
at
Paula
this
there, and another woman on the tour.
The tourists have gone. Most of the
monastery.
vendors
It's
are
about
leaving
a
me
2 or
alone.
3 hour hike up
It's just
to get
beautiful.
there, but it's really cool. There's goats along the way. That's another, what's a cave, well, house, I don't know what you call it now, built into the side of the rock.
Out of
There's
breath
goats
climbing up
living in
there.
it now. And of course, all the way up to the monastery, 2 hours up through the rock, and
More
there were
camels.
gift shops with people selling things all along the way. That's the monastery. It's all the way up,
It's just amazing.
pretty far up, but just even
All the way
bigger
around.
and grander than the treasury, but less detailed. And this is the walk back down. And the colors in the rock are really cool.
The road there with the camels leads back to the treasury, which is the
I think that's
entrance.
on the way.
And then behind me is the hike up to the
I
monastery.
have that picture out of order. And the wood, the black from the people living in there for so long. This was walking back. I was there pretty late in the day, and by the time I was coming back, everybody had pretty much left Petra, so I had it to myself. And I stayed in Petra pretty much until they closed. I was one of the last people out that day. It was just breathtaking. And this is the sick on the way out. From there we headed to Madaba. The next day we headed over to Madaba. There's a Greek Orthodox church there that has a mosaic on the wall, on the floor actually, that's really, really old. I can't remember exactly how old it is, but it's basically showed a map of the area back then. A really detailed map with a lot of information. And we headed to a home-hosted lunch that next day as well. So this is the family that hosted us. The wife, cooked for us, made one of it was that upside-down rice chicken dish again. But this time it had eggplant, and we had lentil soup for an appetizer. It was really good. And then we headed over to Mount Nebo, which is where Jesus showed Moses the Holy Land. And this is looking down from Mount Nebo over the Holy Land, which we thought looked a little bit dry for the Promised Land. That's one of our guides, and then his brother and one of the security guards in Mount Nebo. So we had a different guide in each one of the countries that we went to. One in Jordan, one in Egypt, one in Israel, and one in the Palestinian territories. This guy welcomed us at our hotel with some kind of a lemonade drink that he served out of that thing on his back. Cold, too. There must be ice in there. So this is our hotel. This is on the Dead Sea. Beautiful view. And then that's the Dead Sea. So the floaters, those are people floating in the Dead Sea when we first got there. 420 meters below sea level. And then that's us the next day getting ready to go into the Dead Sea. Lots and lots of people going down there. But you don't really spend a whole lot of time in there. You pretty much get in like that, you float, and then you get out. Because as soon as you get the salt water in your eyes, you can't see anymore, and it's miserable.
Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives.
And you can't stay in the water for very long because it irritates the skin. So pretty much everybody gets in, says they did it, and gets back out. But it is really cool. The whole weightlessness and the floating is really neat. This was sunset looking over the Dead Sea from our hotel. And then the next day we headed back over to the Jordan River. This is on the Jordanian side of the Jordan River. So the first time we went, we were in the Palestinian territories. This is actually where Jesus is thought to have been baptized. So, and that's the Jordan River. You can see it's not a very wide river. You get a good rope swing, and go from one side to the other pretty easily. But that separates the Palestinian territories from Jordan. And then we headed back to the border. So we crossed at the Allenby Bridge, going over from Jordan into the Palestinian territories. It was a couple hours, and then this was the next day. And then we went to the Mount of Olives. We went to Jerusalem. So this is the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, overlooking the town. Those are graves on the side of the mountain there. Everybody wants to be, well, the Jews in particular want to be as close as they can be to Jerusalem, but you're not allowed to actually be buried in the old city. So from the Mount of Olives, we went to the church in Gethsemane. This is where Jesus was believed to have been when they found him and tricked him and basically took him to be crucified. And so this is the olive garden, or those are olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane. And this is a church that's built there. We went to lunch, a really nice area really close by overlooking Jerusalem, with amazing dessert tray. And then the next day we went on a tour. Actually, I think it was even that night. This was we happened to get there right in the middle of Hanukkah, which was really cool. So they were lighting the candles every night in the hotel and serving donuts, because donuts are what you do at Hanukkah, apparently. I didn't know. And there are donut shops everywhere this time of year. And so we went into Jaffa that night. We went into the old city on a night tour. So that was Jaffa Gate in the last picture. And we walked around through Jerusalem in the evening. It was really neat. And it's not very crowded in the evening. Most of the tourists are gone, so we had it mostly to ourselves. And this is the old city. And spices, of course, again. Lots of shops. There's lots of market areas in some of the main areas in Jerusalem. And that's Mom. She bought some stuff from him, so I had to take her picture. And Jaffa Gate. The next day we went on a tour in Jerusalem itself, in the old city, and went to the room where the Last Supper was held. That's Mom at the door. And then this is the actual room. The Last Supper was held in the attic of somebody's house in Jerusalem, and that's where it's believed to have been. This is a synagogue really close by. The women were not allowed to go into the main area, so this is the women's area of the synagogue. So that is our tour guide on the right there, but that's one of the guys. Those are two of the guys from the synagogue there who stopped and talked to us. Very, very Orthodox Jewish people who were willing to stop and talk to us, which was nice. This is walking through the areas in Jerusalem. So there's the Jewish quarter. And then more donuts. There were donut shops everywhere, and they were full, but you'd go by an hour later and the shelves were empty. So really popular. This is some of the newer buildings. There was a fire in Jerusalem at one point in time, and so there's several new buildings that have replaced those. That was a Franciscan monk in one of the areas in the walking tour. This is somewhere between the Jewish quarter and the Muslim quarter. The Seahawks in Arabic. We love that. This is the Via Dolorosa, which is the walk where Jesus was crucified. This was the walk that he went up through when he was being crucified. And if you walk through the Via Dolorosa, you see stations where it marks different stops along the way. And then this is more of the Via Dolorosa. This is one of the stations. I can't remember which one this one was, but they indicate different things that happened to him along the way. and some more of the shops within the old city. I think these pictures are out of order. And so this is right outside of the church where Jesus was thought to have been entombed and resurrected. So that's the tomb. It's we don't think it's really the tomb, but that's supposed to be it behind us. And this is the church that's there next to it. So that's the tomb that marks it, but I think it's more of a commemoration. And the church is built on the site where he was believed to have been resurrected. And then from there we headed over to the Western Wall. That's the Wailing Wall there, where people can write notes and leave them in the wall. There's separate sections. That's men on the left and women on the right. The women's section's a bit smaller. This is the women's section on the wall. And that's the men's on the left there. And that's me putting my note in the wall. Afterwards, we went for a walk, and this procession was coming down one of the walkways.